Welcome, welcome, welcome to call number one of success and fulfillment. My name is Sean Smith, and I just first of all want to congratulate you and acknowledge you and honor you for taking this step. I really want to make this the best program that I've ever done in Mary Kay. I hope this is something that can live on for you, not just in your business, but in your life. It's titled Success and Fulfillment. Very intentionally, I want to help with all the tangible success in your business, but I also want to make sure you don't sacrifice your happiness and fulfillment at the same time. So the tagline of this program is Business Breakthrough with Personal Balance. And that's what many of you in emails back and forth or comments on Facebook are saying is really important to you. So I'm glad that the intention of the program, the title of the program, is striking a chord. We're going to be together for a long time. We're going to be together all the way through to the end of the seminar year as we record these sessions live. My intention is to give you access to and solutions to pretty much all of the challenges and concepts that you would need to grow your business and grow yourself. And I know that might sound like a bold statement, but I've also been coaching and training in the Mary Kay world for well over 10 years. And I'm not going to say I've seen it all because I don't want that to sound demeaning or shallow or invalidate anything that any of you all have going on in your life. But in reality, I have learned that the human brain works pretty similarly in various situations across the planet. And so what that means is, regardless of the details that you have going on in your life and what's affecting you in your business, the exciting thing is your brain operates the way it's supposed to operate. It operates similarly to all other human beings. And once we can figure out what the differences are in terms of the details, we can actually start to reorganize our thinking. We can start to reframe our belief system. We can start to increase our self-esteem and value and confidence and all of those things that are actually creating the blocks, right? And all those things that need to be addressed and shifted or reframed or redefined or increased in order to create more success in your life and in your business. So that's what I'm excited about, is giving you a vault of information that you can constantly go back to. And we're going to co-create a lot of things together. I'm excited about this first call. I've never started a paid program with a laser coaching session. We usually do it session number 2. But as I was thinking of this one, I thought, it might be really powerful to start out with what's up for you, because when I do my live events, that's how I always start. I don't get to any of the content that I have planned until I find out what's up for you, what's in the room, what's on your mind, what's on your heart, right? And what I've found is if we can at least address that stuff, some of it we might not go really deep on now. It might be something that we address later on in the series, but if at least we can acknowledge what's up, then a couple things happen. Number one, you'll notice that you're not alone. Everybody in this program has very similar challenges, even though the details are different. There are so much more, there's so much more similarity than there is difference, I promise you. And it really helps for people to realize that they're not the only ones who are having the challenges. The second thing that it does, starting with laser coaching, is it provides a filter, like a perspective for you to look through, not just for this call specifically, but for the whole program. It allows you to sort of acknowledge what's going on right now and claim that that's what you want to address, right? That's what you want to handle for the rest of this program. So it does a lot at an unconscious level as well. And so before I get into the questions that were sent in, I've got a couple thoughts. And a lot of these were triggered by the questions, and some of them, or a couple of these, I was just thinking, what's going on in my world? What am I coaching around? What am I experiencing personally, etc.? And so I want to start out with a few thoughts. But before I get into the thoughts, I would love for you to be active in the Facebook group. The paid program, Success and Fulfillment, has its own closed Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/MK Success and Fulfillment 2017. You can see it there on the slides. And let me take a moment here to type it into the chat so I can send it out to all of you. And if you have ahas, if there's something that I say that is especially meaningful to you, or it triggers another thought that you have, share it in that Facebook group. I want that group to be a very engaged community. When we have engagement, we have a lot of support, and that's one of the most important things for you to grow, or for you to have in order to grow with this program. So just to be very clear, there's no handout tonight. I just want you to absorb and take notes of inspiration, any thoughts that you have, etc. So, first of all, you're human. I get a sense that I'm going to have to remind you, and myself too, like I'm not talking down to you, but I get a sense that this will be a common theme that we remind ourselves of going forward, because it's so easy for us to expect things of ourselves that are so ridiculous, right? They're so ridiculous. And if we're expecting those things that are ridiculous and they're totally unrealistic, then we're setting ourselves up to fail. And sometimes we just have to remember that we're human. Not only are we human, and we have our own limitations and our own challenges and our own behavior patterns and all that stuff that we're dealing with internally, we're human, which means we have responsibilities and families and temptations. And there are times when we don't want to do anything except pull the covers back up over our head. There are other times when we feel like we could run 20 miles in a day, and other days that we doubt that we will even get through the day, right? Or we doubt what we are made of. We question why we ever signed up for this crazy thing called Mary Kay, or personal development, or or parenthood, or marriage, or anything. Like, what was I, crazy? That's called being human. That's called having a brain that works properly. So remind yourself often that you are human. And most of the things that you're dealing with can be chalked up to you having human experiences. So stop beating yourself up so much. Take it easy on yourself. Take it easy on yourself. A lot of people think that before they succeed, they have to clear away their doubts and their fears and their limiting beliefs and their negative head talks, their head talk. They feel like they have to do all of that internal work to clear away all the obstacles, and then they get to succeed. That's not the way it works. What's true is that you succeed in motion. Success is created in motion. Growth is created in motion. Development is created in motion. I mean, if you think about those words, especially growth and development, those words already have movement in them. And how many people are expecting themselves to grow and develop without taking action, right? Without taking consistent and significant action. It's not how the game is played. It's just not the way it works. So take it easy on yourself. The primary goal in personal development, when we're trying to shoot for a certain target, is to keep moving. Just keep going. Maybe you think of Dory in Finding Nemo, right? Just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Listen, just keep going. And if you take it easy on yourself and you're more of a cheerleader than an abuser, then it'll be easier for you to stay in motion. And I know that for many of you, the main reason you're in this program, whether you know it or not, this might be your goal or it might not be. You might catch this on call number 17. But I promise you, for many of you, the main reason you're in this program, it's a divine appointment for you to stop abusing yourself. Just as simply as that. You got to stop abusing yourself, because that's ultimately what we're afraid of. That's what causes the stress. That's what causes a lot of sickness and illness and disease. That's what causes the negative energy, is that we are just so brutal on ourselves. And I've never known anybody to abuse themselves into happiness. I've never known anybody to abuse himself or herself into happiness. I don't think I've ever put those words together. That just hit me as it came out of my mouth, because I do it too, right? I'm human. I'm that first bullet. I'm human. But we have to catch ourselves and just check in. Is this serving me or is it hurting me? Abuse hurts. Cheerleading serves, right? So you're going to have to stop yourself sometimes. Take the whip out of your hand, and as silly as it may sound, give yourself a hug. Now, some of you are not looking for, you didn't join this program for that kind of, woo-woo sort of stuff, and that's fine too. You are joining the program, as many of you said earlier, or have emailed me, you want to get into the Cadillac. You want to get back into the Cadillac, or back into directorship, or to directorship for your first time, and all of that is fine too. But what I just said still applies to that as well, because that's really why most of us are holding ourselves back. Now, when it comes to your tangible goals and your business specifically, your targets, here's what I know about every single one of you. Now, I don't know where all of you are in your business, right? I can't say that, Anita is a director, or Tina is a consultant, or Sophia, is a senior director. I don't know. I don't know the individual labels, right? The individual statuses that you all have. But here's what I do know. You are exactly where you are. And after 10 plus years in coaching and training in Mary Kay, I can almost guarantee that pretty much all of you don't like that, right? Pretty much all of you are expecting yourself to be somewhere different than where you are right now. You're expecting yourself to be further along than where you are right now. You're doing a lot of shoulds. I should be further. This should be easier. I should be able to just get up and do the work. I shouldn't have these fears, right? If you do that and you're on the webinar here, go ahead and type that into the chat box. If that's you, if you're continuously telling yourself, shoulding on yourself, right? If you're shoulding on yourself, saying, I should be further along in some way, shape, or form, then claim that. Say, that's me. Or if you're on Facebook, you can do the same thing. That's me. I would say 8 out of 10 times I ask anyone in Mary Kay, and this is not just a Mary Kay problem, but it shows up in Mary Kay, and I'm going to use all Mary Kay examples in this program. Anytime I ask somebody, tell me where you are in your business, I would say 8 out of 10 times the response that I get starts with the exact same phrase. Most of the time, the exact same phrase. If any of you have an idea about what that phrase might be, go ahead and type it in. I'll give you 10, 15 seconds before I tell you. And it was shocking to me to hear almost everybody say pretty much the exact same thing. And the reason it's not perfect, Sophia got it, the one I hear all the time. The reason this is shocking is because it doesn't serve you. And so when I ask somebody, where are you in your business? I would say 8 times out of 10, before they tell me, they say, not where I should be. As though they got to give me this disclaimer. Yeah, Cheryl, I get that one too. Not where I want to be. Like there has to be some disclaimer that's given out before they actually tell me where they are. And I get it. I get it that it's not fun admitting that we are not as far along the path as we want to be, but you have to understand that language is crushing you. That language operates as a negative affirmation that reminds you that you're not enough. It reminds you that this is hard. It reminds you of all your failure, even though you might think that you're saying it with humor. You might think that you're saying it carelessly and it really doesn't mean anything. But when your ears continuously hear you say, I'm not where I want to be, I'm not where I should be further along, I've been wasting my time, all of those things are negative affirmations that are crushing your spirit. You, everybody in this program, you never again have permission to answer that question or start a statement when you're going to talk about where you are with the phrase, not where I should be or not where I want to be or anything similar to that. You're no longer allowed to do that because every time you do it, you're crushing your spirit. You're reminding yourself of your failure. You're reminding yourself of your inadequacies. And since 99.9% of us have a story in our head that says, I'm not enough, the last thing we need, if we're going to be our cheerleader instead of our abuser, is to constantly remind us how much we are not enough. That's what that phrase says. So you no longer need to give a disclaimer. And here's the reality. I don't care where you think you should be. I don't care where you promised yourself you would be. I don't care what other people tell you you should have accomplished by now. I don't care what labels others have put on you. I don't care what kind of targets you've given yourself with full belief. None of that matters to me. I don't care what you said at seminar. If you were at seminar this last July in front of your whole team, I don't care what you told them you would do. I don't care what you said you would be next seminar. I don't care what you told your husband. I don't care what you told your children. I don't care what you one time said or what you one time thought. None of that matters because the reality is you are where you are. Pretending that you're supposed to be somewhere else doesn't change that you are where you are, and it doesn't make you feel any better. Now, if you don't like where you are and you keep reminding yourself that you don't like where you are, you're not going to have the right energy to change anything about where you are because you're just continuing to bash yourself, right? So you are where you are, and my invitation for all of you is to embrace that. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past. You'll see when I read some of these questions. Some of you are telling me, I've been in Mary Kay for 35 years. I've been in Mary Kay for 20 years. I've been in for 5 years. I should be so much further along than this. I should have learned my lessons by now. I'm so disappointed in myself. None of that will change the past. And while you're affirming that you should be better than what you are right now, you are a victim of the past. And what that does is that creates shame. Every time you say, I'm not where I want to be, you're shaming yourself. Every time you say anything that's similar to that, you're shaming yourself. And shame's not going to get you where you want to go, and it's also not going to allow you to enjoy this life. So you've got to embrace that you are exactly where you are. And then this final thing is how you focus and what you judge yourself upon. And this will be a theme. I promise you, I'll continue to go back to this piece in some form. I might use even different words depending on the question. But as I read these questions and as we go through this entire series, this will be a theme. Process versus results. Process versus results. Process versus results. So many of you are creating disappointment because you're focused on the results and you're judging yourself on the results that you haven't gotten. The problem with that is the results are dependent on other people saying and doing things that you don't have control over. So, number one, when you focus on results and judge yourself against your results, you are a victim because you don't have 100% control over your success. And nobody likes feeling like a victim. Nobody likes feeling like they're out of control. Nobody likes setting a target and then hoping other people will step up and step forward and do what they said they were going to do so that you can achieve your results. Nobody likes that, including and especially your unconscious mind. If your unconscious mind doesn't like focusing on and being judged by results, you're stuck because your unconscious mind is the strongest thing you've got when it comes to achievement and personal development. It's the strongest thing you got. It will either provide you with all the fuel you need or take all that fuel away from you because it's not interested in playing the victim out of control game based on results. So what you've got to do in life in general, and especially in Mary Kay, is you've got to fall in love not with crossing the finish line on any of your goals. You've got to fall in love with the process of putting one foot in front of the other, with the process of connecting to other human beings, with the process of picking up the phone and possibly changing somebody's life, with the process of opening your mouth and saying some words and putting a smile on somebody's face, with the process of changing their mood so that when they go back home, they might be happier than they would have been had you not talked to them. You've got to fall in love with the process of enriching women's lives, including your own. You've got to fall in love with the process, not the results. And when you fall in love with the process, the results happen. But if you hate the process, yet you're in love with the results, you can't win. So many of you hate the process. If you're honest with yourself, you hate the process. There's at least some process in Mary Kay that you hate, right? You hate when people lie to you. You hate when they give you wrong numbers. You hate when you call and they just string you along. You hate when they don't show up after they say they're going to. You hate when they join the business and then they quit. You hate when people judge you. You hate when people don't support you in your family or your close friends. You hate when people don't give you a chance to explain who you are instead of thinking that you're like the consultant that they met 9 years ago who was super pushy. Therefore, all of Mary Kay is super pushy and they're not interested and you just want to be heard. You hate that stuff. There's some element that you hate about the process. Now, if you agree with me, if you hate at least something about the process, I want you to type into the webinar. You can post it on Facebook. Say, I agree. And this might be hard for you to say, but if it's true, it's true. And you can't change it unless you acknowledge it. It might be really hard for you to say this because that word is a nasty word. But if it's true, it's true. And the only way you're going to change it is if you own it. So just say, I agree. I agree. I'm seeing so many I agrees, and I honor you for acknowledging that. And here's the thing, if there's anything about the process that you hate, you don't want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, but yet you really want the results, you're stuck. You're in a catch-22 because the fire that you have to move through is between where you are right now and where you're trying to go, and that fire is really hot. The closer you get to the fire, which requires motivation, by the way, you got to motivate yourself to get enough speed to run through the fire without getting burned, right? The closer you get to the fire, the hotter it gets, and most people quit and retreat before they actually touch the flames. But if that fire is the fear of rejection or failure or dealing with the judgments or lying or anything that you hate, inside that fire is something that you hate and that you're afraid of. If you have to motivate yourself to move through that fire, even if success happens because you happen to motivate yourself so much one day or over an extended period of time that you run through the fire, even if you run through the fire and cross the finish line, that's not fulfillment. That's not happiness. That's not enjoyment. And if anybody joins you in running through the fires of fear, and there won't be many of them, by the way, that want to bang down that door. But if anybody does, you're going to create the culture in your business that that's what this is. And it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be this difficult set of activities that you hate, that you're afraid of, that feels like you're running through fire. That's not what it has to be. The answer to that is to fall back in love with the process. And here's the thing. You all love the process. There's an element that you love about this business. There's an element, actually many elements that you all love about this business. And whenever I've had this conversation with a client in person or on the phone, and I've had them list all the things they hate about Mary Kay and then list all the things they love about Mary Kay, I don't think I've ever seen a list where the love side doesn't outweigh the hate side by at least 10 to 1. But yet they're just dealing with that one or two things. They're focusing on the small amount of stuff that they hate. And while you're focusing on that, you're not experiencing the love. And you've got to love this process. You've got to love the process to enjoy it. And you've got to love the process to be passionate enough to attract other people who are also going to love this process. So those are some umbrella thoughts just to start this whole program based on some of the questions that came in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move into the questions, and I'm going to put the questions on the screen here. So those of you that are on the webinar, you can see the question as well. Except one question I can't fit on the screen, and I'll talk about that one when we get there. And if I've already talked about the concept that I would attach to your question, then I'll just refer back to what I said earlier rather than continue to repeat the same thing over and over again. Or maybe I'll give a slightly different spin to it. But I want you to really listen to these questions. If you didn't send in any questions, I promise you there's an element in probably every single question that you can relate to. And for those of you that want to be leaders, the more that you understand how to help people through their different questions, even if they don't really relate to you, the more people you can help, right? So the first one, we tragically lost our son in July 2006. Since then, I put on over 100 pounds and now struggle more than ever with self-image issues. I know I'm a good person and I have a lot to offer, but I seem to be in a slump. Any suggestions? I know that I need to lose weight, not only because I don't like the way I look, but for my health. I'm having the hardest time even getting started. Help. I see now that that's not showing up on the screen. Oh, there you go. First of all, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing this. And I'm sorry to hear about your son's death in 2006. One of the classic responses to trauma is lack of self care. And one of the ways that shows up quite often is extra weight. Because when we don't love ourselves, then it doesn't matter what we do to our body, it doesn't matter what we do to our mind, it doesn't matter what happens to us, etc. So we stop protecting ourselves a lot of times when we stop loving ourselves. And I also don't have a canned response that's necessarily going to support you because we're dealing with grief, right? And grief is such a personal journey that it would be irresponsible of me to say, well, here's what you need without knowing more of your details. But what I do want you to know is that whatever it is you're searching for, whether you know it or not, I know one of the things you're searching for is self love. I know that. If there's something else that you're searching for, whether you're conscious of it or not, it's available to you. Now, we can help you identify with specifics what that is. I can't do it just through this one question without the interaction. But I want you to, first of all, know that it's possible. I don't want you to lose hope. No matter how long it's been since you've had the 100 pounds on, since you've dealt with whatever internal issues you're dealing with that has caused the circumstances, it's possible to shift. Where I would go with you if we were having a coaching session is to explore the grief around your son. And I think as a parent, that's the deepest pain a human could experience is the death of a child. So there is no one size fits all. There is no simple shift, and you're not going to get through it by some surface level intellectual process or comments or affirmations. But it can be explored. And oftentimes, what I've found is that inside grief, there are unanswered questions. Or sometimes inside grief, there are unsaid communications, there are unverbalized emotions. I don't know how old your son was, so I don't know what the relationship was. But maybe it's not even between you and your son. Maybe it's between you and his father. Maybe it's between you and any of his siblings. I don't know without exploring more. But what causes people to stay stuck in unhealthy grief is when there's some incompletion generally. Now, that incompletion could be what I was mentioning with other people, or it could be with yourself. If you feel guilt, if you blame yourself for some reason, if you're telling yourself that if you would have been a better mom, this wouldn't have happened, or if you would have been paying more attention, this wouldn't have happened. If you're doing some of that to yourself, then that's where we've got to start, right? But once we can clear away whatever the unhealthiness is inside the grief, then we can start taking some actions that could shift your circumstances. And the weight is one of them. Right now, I think the weight is protection for something or it's punishment. It's one or the other. Based on what you said, if I had to lean one way, I would probably lean toward punishment. You're punishing yourself for something that you probably feel guilty about or something like that. And it's not about knowing how to lose weight. We all know how to lose weight, and we all know that we need to lose weight when we're overweight. But that's not it. It's not about the doing part. For you, it's more about the being part, and it's about being gentle with yourself and clearing whatever grief is that's got a grip on you. So my heart goes out to you. When you say you're having the hardest time even getting started, I can't say I understand from having that experience, but I understand the words, right? I understand what you're saying. And I can imagine how hard it is to get started again. But the worst thing you can do is just try to push yourself with anger or any kind of force or shame or blame or any of that before you have completion in the grief. And when I say completion in the grief, that doesn't mean that you'll ever get to the point where you're not sad. Sadness and grief are different. They're not exactly the same. Of course, they're related, but they're not exactly the same. Unhealthy grief can last forever. It can, because time doesn't heal grief. Finding the lessons or finding the answers or finding the love, whatever it is for you to do, that's the only thing that can heal the grief. So that's your journey. And you can tell that I'm not putting any names on here. I don't even know the names of most of these people that sent it in. And I appreciate, again, your willingness to be vulnerable. I won't put anybody's names out there. If you want to claim a question that you send in, you can do it on the Facebook group if you want and engage a conversation like that. And that goes for all of you, not just this question. But I'll always keep your names confidential so that you know it can be safe. And I, again, honor you specifically for sending this question in. And I want to honor all of you that are willing to be open and honest, because we are dealing with real life, right? I mean, I put it out there in this program that there's nothing out of bounds. We're dealing with real life. We're not dealing with just business. We're not dealing with just get over it, get on the phone, book some skincare classes. That's not going to get over this. So I also believe that somewhere in this question, there's something that's resonating with somebody else as well, whether it's specifically grief around death or something else. And so for that, I honor you. I'm not going to say this very often because I don't want you to feel like I'm just trying to push you all onto a phone call with our coaches. But this issue right here needs to be handled, and it needs to be handled gently. And I invite you to get on the phone with one of our trained coaches so they can help you. We have several coaches that are trained specifically in grief. And I don't know what you've done. I don't know if you've done counseling, therapy, or other coaching or whatever. So forgive me if it feels like I'm stepping on your toes or anything, but my invitation to you is to use that 30-minute free coaching session and do it ASAP, because this is not going to wait around. So with that one, I'm not able to really give you an answer, so to speak, but I can tell you where to start. Okay, this next one. I'm excited. I'm at a place in my life that I'm ready to clear myself of toxic behaviors of self-doubt, fear of failure, fear of success, and so much more. My question would be about setting yourself up for a comeback. As a consultant that has been up and down the career path, most recently a director stepping down, I have many feelings about my MK business. How do you get your loved ones on board with another try at the business that I did not give consistent, serious attention and respect to? If you've tried and succeeded, then failed, then procrastinated, then all but quit, how do you regain their support or even find your own? Lastly, always been a stopper. Let me get it up on here. Always been a stopper. Fighting back again the date on the calendar. Maybe that's against the date on the calendar. How to overcome the monthly goals. The date it shows becomes paralyzing. Man, we could do a whole call on this one right here. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of these things and not go super deep, just because there's so many other questions that came in. You kind of said it, that when you are going to give this another try, the first person you have to sell is you. If you're not all the way in, then the chances of your family and friends that care about you the most, of them being in, are very, very slim, especially if they see that you're not really happy. I mean, a lot of people mistake resistance from family and friends, or they mistake support for resistance. They think it's lack of support. A lot of times your family and friends are supporting you being happy, and they see you doing something that's not making you happy. And so they're like, well, why don't you stop? They're not necessarily not supporting you when they do that. They're actually supporting you being happy. And you'll see a lot of times that the spouse actually has unconditional support. They don't care if you become a national sales director or not. They want you to be happy. And if this thing isn't making you happy, then I'm not going to support it. And it doesn't matter what this thing is. It could be a behavior pattern like alcohol. It could be a company. In this case, could be Mary Kay. It could be a friend, right? Whatever it is, if there's something influencing you that's not making you happy, then I, as your spouse or as your close friend, probably won't be a big fan of that thing. So a lot of times the lack of support is actually support, but it's support for your happiness. So that's why I say the first person you've got to win over is you. When you truly are happy and you are passionate about what you're doing, then it'll be much easier for other people to be happy for you and to be passionate for you. And if they're not supportive of you, most of the time they won't be obstacles. They won't get in your way. They might just keep their mouth shut because they can see that you're happy and passionate. But don't think that you need somebody else to be your cheerleader in order to succeed in this business. It's not necessary. It's easier for most people than to have the resistance, but it's not necessary. The bigger resistance is always internally for us. So that's your battle with yourself. All the things that you said, succeeded, failed, procrastinated, all but quit. Now, I don't know this to be true about you, but usually when I ask people that have something similar like this, they're holding on to about their friends and family, I say, how many times have they said that to you? And usually the answer is, well, they don't say it, but they roll their eyes or they say it in other ways. A lot of times they're not saying any of that stuff, or they're not saying as much of it as you think they are. It's all an internal game of projection most of the time. Now, you might have had a husband, a sister, somebody else, a mom specifically say these things to you. And in that case, that's just a little bit different. It makes it a little bit unique, but the same concept applies. You sell yourself first. You be happy. You do what you've got to do to be passionate. And then all this other stuff about getting support isn't that big of a deal. And when you love the process, because that's what we're talking about, right? Loving the process, you're going to get better results. And then the goals that have those dates on the calendar aren't going to be so scary because you're going to stop pretending that you're any more valuable as a person if you achieve those goals, or that you're any less valuable as a person if you don't achieve those goals. That's the real reason why those dates are so scary to you, is because you're telling yourself if you hit them, you get to win, and if you miss them, you lose, and you're going to be devastated emotionally. That's why those dates are scary, because they're reminding you of the emotional devastation. That's your journey. Love the process. Judge yourself for your effort and not your results that you don't control. And those dates will be not just, they won't be paralyzing anymore. They'll be neutralized, and or we might even be able to shift them completely to where they're inspiring to you. One last thing as I glance through your question again, you have try in quotes. That's a really bad word. Especially when you have all the failure in the past. If you say you're going to give something else a try, you're already defeated. You've already said, here's what happens underneath that word. I'm going to fail again, but because I don't want to face the fact that I tried my best and failed, I'm just going to give it a try. And I'm going to say that so everybody else knows I'm also not all that serious. But while I'm not that serious, I want everybody to support me in this final try. It's not how it works. Mary Kay's mission right now, Mary Kay's movement right now is not give it a try. Mary Kay's mission and movement right now is all in. All right, next question here. I'm really looking forward to our first training session tonight. I started my journey last April, and after significant personal struggle and constant letdown, I realized that it is not the skills I'm lacking in the business, but the fear of failure and rejection that continues to creep up in my life. Your first webinar in the recent series struck a chord when you talked to us about giving our little girl inside a hug as opposed to a whooping. My number one question is if the material covered in the next several months will be able to be accessed permanently so that if we encounter a specific struggle in the future, we'd be able to listen to the recordings again. So the quick answer to that is yes. I truly appreciate your style of digging down deep and helping us get to the real issues that hold us back from being the best that we can be in all aspects of our life. Super excited to start and look forward to interacting with you soon. So that question was mostly on the structure of the program, but the big issue there is that she alluded to is giving your little girl a hug instead of a whooping. We all have this innocence inside that on some level at some point in time sort of stopped developing. That's what we need to reconnect with. That little child, the little girl or the little boy inside that needs encouragement. And that little girl doesn't need encouragement from anybody else. She needs it from you. So the more that you connect with that desire, the easier all of this is going to be. Katie just typed in here, your self-worth is not conditional. Yes, that's one of the things we talked a lot about in that webinar series. Your self-worth is not conditional. I love that. Your value is set at enough. That's what your value is. Your value is good enough. It can't increase if you become a director or a national or get win the trip, pink Cadillac. None of that stuff will increase your self-worth. Your self-worth is finite. Next question. I've been with Mary Kay for 36 years on and off, more on than off. I love the community, the mission, and the Mary Kay Ash herself. I've always used the product and wouldn't use anything else. I resonated with the idea that I may actually not be progressing and feeling fear related to self-image. And I want to ask, can we explore this more during coaching? So again, the short answer to that is absolutely yes. And the self-image conversation is a personal one. It's an individual one. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach to clearing that issue. We can talk about the concepts in general, but if you really want to clear the things that are actually holding you back, that requires putting yourself under the microscope, right? So yes, that can definitely be explored more during the coaching. I think there's something here for me. I believe I have what it takes to be a director, but something is holding me back. Can it be scripts in my subconscious that sabotage my ability to progress? Yes, that's my answer. Looking forward to the coaching. I'm integrating this into my life changes I'm making now, so timing is perfect. Yes, the scripts that you have, that we all have in our unconscious mind, are really determining our state of mind. They're determining our moods. They're determining our motivation levels. And because of all of those things, they determine our activities. They determine when we take action, right? And of course, your actions are going to create your results. So when you don't feel good because you've got these scripts going on in your subconscious mind, it makes it harder to take action. And the longer it takes for you to take that action and to be committed and to fall back in love and do all the things that I was talking about, the more that all of that squashes your self-image, right? Your self-image is not just going to heal on its own. You're not just going to retreat away from the fire and then your self-image is going to grow. It actually continues to get weakened when you don't nurture it, when you don't keep pushing forward. And obviously we don't want that, right? We want the self-image to be healthy. We want the self-image to be safe from your results. And when that happens, you don't have to worry about so much of the sabotaging patterns. Now, there are patterns that we do have to address, but when your self-esteem is not wrapped up inside of those patterns, then it's easier to change the patterns. That's the key. So we will get into self-image a lot during this course. I'll give you a bunch of exercises. We'll keep alluding to it. It will be a constant conversation, I promise. So check this one out. I couldn't get it on. This is the largest font I could use to get it on the screen. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this. And if you can't see it, that's okay. I really just kind of wanted you to see how big it was. But I'm not trying to, be insensitive or anything, because there's so much in here. So I'm going to read this because there's something that's going on in your life that this lady mentions. And it's like a perfect, I don't even know if I can call it a microcosm, because there's really not a whole lot micro about, this scenario and everything that she alludes to. But this is really life, right? This is life. So I'm going to read it, and I want you to be sensitive while listening for something that has value for you, right? All right, here we go. And it'll take me a few minutes, obviously. Where to start with the questions? I've been in Mary Kay for 16 years, became a director a year and a half later, had to pause the IQ because my dad was sick and he died. But I started back up and had made it. I decided to do your paid program because I think I'm just messed up and need to figure it all out. LOL. Well, a start. I know our biggest problem is just ourselves and our thoughts, our brain thoughts. I try not to voice anything negative out loud, but that doesn't stop my brain from thinking of everything too much. By the way, I didn't say this, but if you hear anything in here that resonates for you, type it in either on Facebook or in the chat box here on the webinar, and just say, I hear you. Say I hear you, because I want you to know that, that you're not alone, right? All right, I'm trying to find my spot. I forget. Where were we? I'm just going to probably read this again. I try not to voice anything negative out loud, but that doesn't stop my brain from thinking of everything too much. Just to have a million things to do, never getting it done, and oh yeah, you have 5 kids, so how can you? The sense of being overwhelmed and not doing anything but have everything to do, struggling to do and have the energy. It would be so easy to just be a mom and not have to do a business. So why do I keep trying to do this business? Because it's an amazing business and being able to help people, and I want to do so many things. I love this because I'm out of reading now, just because I can feel the tug of war, right? I just want it all to stop. Let me just be a mom. Not that that's easy, but let me just do that without the stress of building a business. But I love this business, right? I mean, it's just such a perfect give and take almost, right? Just a huge tug of war. So let's see. Sorry. Oh, it's an amazing business, and I want to be able to help people. I will be 42, married for 15 years, 5 kids, 3 boys, 2 girls, 13, 10, 6, 5, 4. We have never had family around. We are used to just doing what we need to do. If we can't do it, then it doesn't get done, which a lot of things don't get done. I was severely sick with crazy things and just wasn't supposed to move or walk for a lot of years, heart rate of 190, all while being pregnant and trying to take care of kids. But you have to just do it. Finally, 5 years later, I'm able to exercise easy ones and trying to catch up on home bills, to do stuff, etc. Just tachycardia now of resting rate 100. We've come a long way. They have ruled out all heart issues. I will get really tired still. But I've always been a fighter and tried not to let any of this stop me or my kids. But it did handicap me for a long time, I have to be honest. My kids haven't had the best mom that they could have had because of this. So I'm trying to fight my days still, where I just get up and not do anything, just look at Facebook, take a nap with my kids. I have tons of stuff to do, just home stuff and Mary Kay stuff. I know I'm not lazy, but I've had this not doing anything lifestyle for a while, and I need to kick it. I'm trying to schedule my day, the 6 most important list, but I'm still trying to, let's say, I need to get started. I need to start getting up at 5 or 6 to be able to do my personal things, and I have more hours to the day. I also have not found my true why because I don't have the energy to get up or want it bad enough yet. Like something's wrong with me. You would think that with 5 kids, that's my reason, but it's like, oh well. Why do I have a brain that keeps saying like blah, 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 not wanting to work hard for a director again? I've never been a tracker, even when I first started. All I think of is Mary Kay all day long, and then it handicaps me, and then I don't do anything with my 2 kids still not in school. Bad. Being a director before, is it holding me back now? I've been a really different person since I first started Mary Kay. Now, husband and 5 kids. I just used to do Mary Kay whenever I wanted. When they are free, I was free. I still try to do that. It's so hard to just tell them like 3 days I'm available. Because I'm home during the days, I could just do it every day, right? In the back of my head, I know one thing that handicaps me is when we had moved out here and my mom was playing head games with me. I found out my dad wasn't my dad. Anyways, I haven't had a relationship since he's passed because she was on a crazy single life type of life after. She kept telling me that I'm going to give my order to my cousin because I am too selfish to have kids. Well, I have 5 now, LOL. I was the only kid and grandkid to not have kids at 16 or early 20s. I had to let go of my life because I had to let her go out of my life because she just kept attacking me and I was never her fault. I'm assuming that her words still affect me and more. Reasons why I'm not working harder because so that I'm not looked at as being selfish. Maybe that still eats at me. Well, probably. I just voiced that and I'm a little emotional. This getting real stuff is hard. I'm not usually an emotional person, but I know I have been broken for a while. The biggest problem is I don't plan my day to day. Why I stay home and I have the freedom to do what I want. Well, finding that hasn't been working and I need to schedule everything. Ugh. Here's to getting back to being a more confident woman and to kick some butt. She didn't really write butt. LOL. I know I just rambled on, but oh well. Don't I won't delete it. I'll just leave it as is. So, first of all, I acknowledge you for writing all of that stuff. And I've got all kinds of people that are typing in, I hear you. So, you're not alone. Thank you for addressing so many of those things because you're human, right? This is reality. You've got 5 children. My invitation to you, I've got just a couple things to say. And again, I know there's a lot of stuff in here, but I'm not going to spend the 60 minutes to address all the little things because some of those are addressed in other questions as well. But number one, kind of going backwards here, whatever gets you emotional means there's something there. So you being deemed selfish, you being judged to be selfish is an issue because it got you emotional. And as long as success means selfish to you, you're not going to give yourself permission to succeed. Now, I don't know this to be true, but there could be something going on with not feeling like you deserve success because you would be out achieving your mom or your family, right? Even if it's not conscious, a lot of people have an unconscious internal fear of outperforming their family because it will make their family feel bad or it'll make their family attack them or other people will attack them on behalf of their family or they'll attack themselves, right? We never want to be attacked. And especially if our loved ones are involved, whether we have great relationships with them or not, we don't want to be attacked by our family. And so if that's the case with you, you'll never allow yourself to win. So I highly, highly, highly suggest you have that as one of the main filters that you go through this program with. If you're already doing coaching with somebody, take that into your coaching relationship and really explore that piece. And the thing about that that's dangerous is that it's general. It's not just about your mom. It's tied to your mom, but if success equals selfishness in general, then you can't win anywhere, whether your mom's around or not. So that's a really big one that we've got to go after here. The second thing, and this is probably the last thing that I just want to share with you, is you're dealing with a ton of patterns. I mean, just having 5 kids will put most people in an emergency kind of state of mind, right? Urgency. There's always something that has to get done with one kid, let alone 5 of them. So because of that, you've got all kinds of behavior patterns that have built up over the years, and they've been strengthened just by time. My invitation to you is don't try to get up at 5, and don't try to do 6 most important things, and don't try to schedule all your days out the day before. While all of those things are important and there's a lot of people that have been successful with doing those things. That's not where you're at. Where you're at, I'm going to be blunt and honest with you based on what you said. You're in a down spiral. You're in a spiral. So we can't take you from a spiral to all of a sudden shooting back straight up through the air. We got to slow the spiral down. And then we've got to stop it. And then we've got to take small, consistent, easy to put in practice actions to then create a single habit that's pointing us in the right direction. And then create another one on top of that. And then create another one. So what I want you to do is imagine you're in a car going 50 miles an hour in the wrong direction. By you saying, I need to get up at 5 or 6, I need to do my schedule ahead of time, I need to do the 6 most important things, you're basically saying, I need to just flip a U-turn and go in the other direction and not drop below 50 miles an hour. And I know you might not have consciously thought that, but that's from a habit standpoint, that's what you're asking your mind to do. But if you're going 50 miles an hour in the wrong direction, you got to slow down first, right? You first have to go 49 and then 48 and then 47 and pull it all the way to a stop, or at least a slow enough speed so that you can make a U-turn. And then once you make a U-turn safely, now you start increasing your speed going in the other direction. So I don't want you to try to make this gigantic quantum leap from where you are to crazy momentum going in the other direction. I want you to give yourself time. I also want you to appreciate what you've done. You've been through a lot at 42. 190 heart rate, it's crazy. And to do what you've done to get it down, awesome. You've gone through a lot. You are very strong. You have to remind yourself of that. And again, you've got to be your cheerleader. So what I want you to do is to choose one slowing down shift. Slowing down meaning if you're going 50 miles an hour in the wrong direction, we got to slow you down first. I want you to choose one thing that you think will slow you down. It'll stop the spiral a little bit. It could be going to bed earlier. It could be drinking more water. It could be reading. It could be meditating. It could be spending just a little more time with each of your kids in joy and happiness and not urgency and momness, right? I don't know where you feel most out of alignment in your life. You've listed a bunch of things, and again, I honor and thank you for it. Wherever you feel most out of alignment, my suggestion to you is to pick something that will help slow that down. And just do that one thing. And do it, depending on what it is. Do it for a few days, do it for a week, do it for a couple weeks. Might take a couple weeks to put a new behavior into place and make it stick as a pattern. It might just take a couple days if it's a really simple behavior. But do one thing at a time. And I want you to give yourself 3 years. Don't try to become a director by the end of seminar year this year. Give yourself 3 years. You're dealing with a lot. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't achieve success in Mary Kay until 3 years from now. That's not what it means. But I need you to give yourself a long period of time so that you don't put pressure on yourself to turn this all around. And this goes for everyone, not just this one particular lady. This goes for everyone. We put so much pressure on ourselves to turn things around immediately with the dates on the wall, and we tell people that we're going to be a director by this time and all that stuff, and all it does is increase the pressure. And very, very, very few people actually perform better under pressure, especially self-imposed pressure. So I want you to give yourself 3 years, have that long-term mentality, but then get to work on a daily and weekly basis with changing some of the habits. And if we can get you in the next 3 months to be energetic, to feel more alive, to feel more joyful, to feel more fulfilled in your family life, now we can start making some progress. Now, I'm not saying put Mary Kay down until that time. Still do a little bit of Mary Kay, but clear the space for it. Don't think about it all day long. You're just increasing the pressure. Create the space for it. Do it for an hour a day, and then turn the hour into an hour and a half, and turn that into 2 hours. And allow yourself to be who you are and handle what you need to handle all the other times of the day, because you can't manage 5 kids while you're thinking about Mary Kay all day long, shaming yourself and judging yourself, beating yourself up. That's not going to work. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I love the energy that you had in the ending here. You said you want to kick some butt. You use a different word for butt, but I like that. I like that fighting spirit. And we got to use that fighting spirit for you instead of against you. All right. Yeah, somebody just said, I feel that way about out achieving my mom. So somebody related to your situation with your mom. She said she doesn't want to out achieve her mom. Okay, the next one. I have to say, what I struggle with is all the noise in my head. Example, when you ask, what is your purpose? What do you want most? I think and write it down, then I find myself second guessing or changing it or wondering if I'm overthinking. Yes, you're overthinking it if you're doubting your purpose. When we talk about your purpose, that's a heart question, not a head question. It sounds to me like your head is assessing whether you got it right or not. That's why you think about it and then second guess it, you change it. You're trying to get it right, which tells me you don't have it yet. Because when you have it, when you connect with your heart's purpose, you won't be asking anybody to approve of you, including your own head. You'll know it. That's why I'm here. Now, we'll do an exercise later in the program, so I'm not going to explain it right now, but it's very simple exercise. It's just repeatedly asking somebody else why it is that they're doing what they're doing. It's very difficult to do it on your own and get a good outcome, so I'm not going to suggest you do that. But in the program, we'll talk about eliciting your own why and somebody else's why, and it'll be really powerful once you strike the chord. So don't make this a cerebral and intellectual process for you. Make it about your heart. Excellent. I was just reading some of the comments that are coming in on Facebook and some of the comments in the chat box. So thank you all for continuing to comment. People are saying this is really resonating with me. I'm working on not beating up my little girl, my inner little girl. I feel so blessed to be part of this group. Awesome. I love that. Couldn't come at a better time. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of support in this group. Some of you might find friends in this group that you'll have for the rest of your lives. I mean, it could potentially be that powerful. Okay, the next question. The next question. I work full time. Being single, I'm the breadwinner. I want my Mary Kay to be successful, but it seems that every time I get momentum rolling, something happens personally or with work, and my time is taken up with these things instead. I've been a Mary Kay consultant for 11 years. Started my business when my husband left and I was laid off from my job, and it is just time for this thing to work. What is holding me back? As much as I want to have a little bit of fun and say that I'm looking into my crystal ball, and I'm about to tell you what is holding you back specifically, I won't do that because it's not possible. But the issues that you've expressed, the things that you've shared, certainly point to certain concepts, right? And one thing that you've got to look at is why you're doing your business. When you started your business, you started it with probably a little bit of vengeance, maybe, or a little anger, or a little fierceness, like I'm going to show him. If you started this business after your husband left, then there was probably a fight in it, right? Like, I'm going to get back on my feet. You can't hold me down. There was empowerment in it, and you're not in that space anymore. Not that those things aren't still important, but you're not fresh off of your husband leaving. So a lot of times when businesses are started in a very dramatic or traumatic or super emotional phase of your life, once you're no longer in that phase, then the business needs to be reassessed. It's almost like you have to start over again with a different reason. Because for the longest time, Mary Kay was fulfilling this purpose for you, and now that purpose doesn't need to be fulfilled anymore. Right? That's where I would start with you, is to check in on why you're doing this business. And I can't tell you how many times we've checked in with people, why are you doing this business? And they, they're frustrated because they became a director and then they stopped working and now they can't make it all work. And I was like, well, why were you doing the business in the first place? And why were you successful? So I could show my dad that I could be a director. All right, well, mission accomplished. What now? And they don't realize that the goal was achieved. So, for instance, and again, I don't know this to be true because I don't know the details, but let's say that when you were laid off of your job after having just been left by your husband, if you made Mary Kay work and you were able to become self sufficient, mission accomplished. Now what? Right? There has to be purpose in what we're doing. And a lot of times, the purpose that we started the business with doesn't apply now anymore. And sometimes it's because you might have just recently had a traumatic event happen to you. And you've been in Mary Kay for the longest time and you didn't really need to make money because your husband made plenty of money and you guys were financially comfortable, and all of a sudden something happens and now you got to make money, and now you don't understand why it's not as enjoyable as it was before, because it just changed. The reason just changed. And you can't think that the reason you started Mary Kay is always going to be the reason that you are continuing Mary Kay, right? So you've got to check in with that first. If we don't have the reason, then none of the other stuff matters at all. And if you're not aligned with your reason, then there's a chance that you're allowing these other distractions that keep happening to be distractions for you. I bet there's something in your life, either in the past or if you could imagine right now, that you could be working toward, and the same exact situations might come up and you wouldn't let them bother you because you've got your blinders on, because you're focused, because it's not an option to allow yourself to get distracted about certain things. Right now, Mary Kay isn't that important to you to where these other distractions are simply like just noise, right? So right now they're distractions because you're either allowing them to be distractions. You might be seeking the distractions, especially if you're not fully 100% aligned with Mary Kay, because the purpose is different now. So those are things that I would explore for you. How do you get back to that purpose? And then how can you get to that undistractable space? Now, that doesn't mean that you forget everything that actually needs to be addressed, right? You handle that stuff. But when you're undistractable, you can still manage those distractions and not let it knock you completely off and out of the game, right? It's not an all or nothing. So if you're letting it stop you almost entirely, I'm thinking that you're not rooted in your purpose enough in Mary Kay. All right, next one. I have a few questions. When personal issues are happening, I'm having a hard time trying to stay focused on my monthly goals. Is there an exercise or something that I can do to put a barrier between the personal issues and staying consistent and focused on my monthly goals? I feel like I let my personal problems and issues take over and I lose focus and consistency. I recruited a man on my team in January. He's excited, came into the business, qualified, and is carrying inventory. How do I make sure he stays excited? The Mary Kay world is for everyone, but mainly women, and I want to make sure he's accepted as a Mary Kay beauty consultant at our events, our unit meetings, etc. This world can be so judgmental, and I want him to succeed. So I'll start with the second one. First of all, I honor your desire to protect him and his heart and make sure that he succeeds and make sure that he's happy. And as you said, this world can be so judgmental. And that's the world in general. People can be judgmental. We are judgmental. Every single one of us is judgmental. It's impossible to not be judgmental because judgmental isn't necessarily negative. Judgmental is also positive. We all are judging creatures. That's what we do. But I hear what you're saying. You don't want him to be hurt by people's judgments. And there are people in Mary Kay. So, Mary Kay has this issue too, because when you got millions of people under one, big roof, there's going to be people problems, right? So I honor you for wanting to protect him. And you've got to make sure that you're not doing damage by trying to protect him also. You think about the mother bird that doesn't want her baby bird to get hurt, so she doesn't let him fly. That's what you've got to make sure on some level, that you don't become that helicopter parent in Mary Kay and just protect him from whatever might happen, right? You can be aware of it, you can be ready for it, but don't go looking for it, because then you'll probably find what you're looking for, or you'll train him to find what he's looking for, and you can create resentment, you can create anger and shame and all these kinds of things that aren't going to support you, right? And the same thing goes for him as goes for everybody. He's got to be sold first. If he's passionate about this business and loves the process and loves what he's doing, then people are either going to accept him or he won't care if they don't. Your first question about personal issues, there's no detail here. So personal issues is a pretty big umbrella. It depends on the issue. Some issues are important enough for you to stop everything you're doing, including Mary Kay, and handle your issue. Some personal issues are so unimportant that if you continue working your business, they will just go away because you don't give them any oxygen to breathe. You don't give them any attention, and they just go away. And personal issues are so varying that there is no one size fits all. So I would suggest that when you have a personal issue that comes up, first of all, you're always going to have personal issues because you're a person. So don't get mad at personal issues and don't feel like life's not fair because you keep having all these things happen to you when you're a human being and you've got roles and responsibilities and relationships. So don't hold on to personal issues as though they are distractions, because in reality, Mary Kay is here to help you win at life. So life is the game. If life is the game, then don't think that life is getting in the way of Mary Kay. And I know you didn't say that, but I hear that phrase all the time in Mary Kay. Life gets in the way. How can the game that's more important get in the way? Sometimes it's us pretending that other things are more important that gets in the way of life. So you've got to check in and see if this is a personal issue that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to go forward. Or if it's a personal issue that's only going to get bigger if you fuel it, and you can starve it by not giving it any attention or giving it just a little bit of attention and have it go away or fix itself. Or maybe you delegate some of these personal issues. Maybe you put other people on it. And if there is a situation, like most of the time, where you've got to address personal issues, because you all have a personal life, we all do. Can't separate these two things. When we need to do both, which we usually do, then we've got to set time aside for it. If you have a bunch of personal issues that you keep letting creep into your business day, let's just say that you look back on today and you handled all these personal issues over a 10-hour period of time, just to make up some numbers. 10-hour period of time. Every time you went to work your Mary Kay business, you got a phone call, you got an email, you had to do something that addressed these personal issues, right? And let's say it took you 10 hours, and so you didn't work Mary Kay at all because each time you were ready to sit down to do Mary Kay, you got pulled away. Well, one question I would ask is, when you sat down to do Mary Kay, did you open up your email and check it? Because if you opened up your email and checked it, then you didn't get pulled away. You invited a distraction into your life. Most of us are inviting the distractions that we're irritated by, but we're inviting them, right? You can't get mad at the email when you have the window open, right? Email can't bother you unless you allow it to. There's no rule that says if you have a phone, you have to answer it every time it rings either. So a lot of times we invite the distractions into our lives and then we allow them to pull us away from whatever it is that we want to focus on. Now, this might not be the exact issue with you because, again, I don't know what your personal issues are. But for a lot of people in general, that is true. That we're more inviting them than not. So instead of inviting all of the issues that then take 10 hours to handle energetically, there's a good chance that you could have done all of that stuff in 7 hours if you gave yourself the time to only work on that during the 7 hours or during a 2-hour window, and then shift and go eat or go exercise or do some Mary Kay for an hour or 2 hours and then come back. When you chunk your day according to different roles and responsibilities and different brain waves, you're more effective. So, for instance, when you have to be creative, right? Calling people is a creative energy. You're connecting heart to heart. It's human interaction. That's a creative energy. Administrative stuff is not a creative energy. It's admin, right? It uses a different muscle in the brain. And it's not easy to go back and forth from one to the other. So if you spend 30 minutes doing administrative stuff and then you immediately try to shift over into creative stuff, a lot of times it takes some time to get into the right space to now shift gears in your brain. So one of the best things you can do is you just chunk out your day. You have Mary Kay times and you have personal times. But in every single moment where you feel like a personal distraction has given you the opportunity to change your focus, and notice how I just worded that. I worded that very intentionally. A distraction has given you the opportunity to change your focus. That doesn't mean you have to. It's given you the opportunity to. You can decline the opportunity if you want and keep your focus. So every time you get the opportunity to change your focus, check in. How important is this? If it's important, does it have to be done today? If it's important and has to be done today, does it have to be done now? If it's important, it has to be done today, it has to be done now, does it have to be done by me? Right? Be very critical with any potential distractions. Many of them you'll find don't need to be addressed. We tend to make emergencies out of things that are not emergencies. And a lot of times we make emergencies out of them because we don't love the process. So we're actually happy when we get distracted from the process that we don't love, especially when we then get to say, I have all these distractions that are holding me back from experiencing success in Mary Kay. We actually like to have those excuses so we can blame somebody other than us. But I would say most of the time, it's because we're inviting these distractions. So I don't mean to sound insensitive at all. Your personal issues might be somebody dealing with cancer. If that's the case, quit doing anything that keeps you away from spending time with that person. Or your personal issues might be email management. In that case, turn your email off, right? There's two totally different ends of the spectrum, according to what issues we're talking about, that will determine how you handle it. But you can assess what end of the spectrum it is each and every time you feel the opportunity to change your focus. And then you'll know there are certain times when you got to shift gears and certain times when you just have to stay focused on your business. And it'll be easier to knock out your monthly goals and all those things you talked about, especially if you love the process. All right, with that, I'm going to stop here. We've got many more questions that came in, but we don't have enough time. And it wasn't important to me to get all of the questions done in this call. It was more important to me to be as thorough with my answers and hopefully give some valuable responses as I could. So we have another half dozen questions or so. We will transfer that, or we'll keep that on the list and move that forward into the next laser coaching call. I also want to get you guys off the phone most of the time and off the webinar most of the time, inside of 90 minutes for sure. My goal with a lot of the content sessions is going to be closer to an hour to 70 minutes or so most of the time, especially with the content sessions. I knew this was the first call. We got a lot of things. There's excitement. We got all kinds of challenges and all that stuff, and that's fantastic. So I'm happy with this first call. Hopefully you've gotten a lot out of it. Hopefully there's at least some nugget that you can take and apply, and please let me know. Please post on the Facebook page or respond to the emails or just send me a new email directly. Let me know what you got out of this session. Let me know how it is helping you shift, how it is helping you get more customers, regardless of whether it's a tangible shift or an intangible shift. Please share that with me. Number one, it's important for you to acknowledge that. And number two, I just want to help you celebrate it. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this session, the rest of this program, all these sessions. I really hope you are too. I can't wait to continue this journey with you all. The more that you stay engaged, the more you're going to get out of this program, and the more you're going to help other people who need that engagement too. So with that, everyone, that's it for call number one. Hopefully it was valuable, and we will see you on call number 2 next week. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.